David, with the injuries that you guys have sustained to the pitching staff, and specifically right now with only 3 starters standing in the rotation, how do you look at filling those slots in the near term?
I think every option is on the table, and we're discussing all of them, whether that's more days like yesterday with an opener followed by a length option followed by bullpen, whether we go straight bullpen days, whether we call up additional stars from the minor leagues, whether we seek external help. We're going to evaluate everything. We'll get through it. I do think we have options to get through this, and this is more of a short-term need than a longer-term need. We feel good about where Senga is in his process. We feel good about where Sean is getting back. And so clearly this weekend we've got some decisions to make. Then we have an off day and we get into next week and it becomes a little cleaner.
Would you consider, even just as a short-term spot starter, one of the young, higher prospect kids, whether it's a Sproat or a McLean?
I'd say my preference is to not bring up, we've talked about this before, not bring up a top prospect for a spot start. I also understand this is a unique circumstance, and I can't take anything off the table right now, but my preference would be to figure out a way to do it without doing that.
Howie?
David, can I just elaborate on your last point? What tells you instinctively that it wouldn't be time, even if it's a spot start, to bring up whether Sproat, McLean, or anybody at that level?
I think from a developmental standpoint, we prefer, again, it's not always possible, but we prefer, and I've seen over my career that's often beneficial for pitchers who you expect to pitch in your rotation for years to come, to have a little bit of runway when they break into the major leagues. It's not easy to come up here and perform right away. Sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 starts to get your feet under yourselves at the major league level. And I think allowing a pitcher, especially a top prospect pitcher, to have that runway can be helpful sometimes, both from a physical and a psychological standpoint. There's also the reality of a baseball season that you have to get through. So you don't always get to follow the perfect path.
Do you feel, based on your own experience with an issue like that, that even if you were to bring one of those kids up for a spot start and it did not go well, what is the downside? I mean, do you feel that it would be counterproductive to his development, create a setback, or can it stand alone as just one rocky start in a worst-case scenario?
Yeah, it's probably different for every individual, and probably also sometimes difficult to judge before that happens. I think look, the clear downside to giving someone the ball and having them not have a good outing, a short start, whatever it is you put your major league team in a hole. And so step one is we'd like to avoid that outcome. For the individual player's development, you never know. I am certain there are pitching prospects and prospects in general who will handle that just fine. And there are others who it probably impacts a little bit more, and trying to figure out which is which can be difficult. It's also perfectly possible that you call someone up, they give you 5 good innings, and then go back down and continue their development. So I'm certainly aware of all of these outcomes, and we're sorting through it.
Dave, I think the last time that we spoke to you here in the setting that you said you were entering kind of a period of evaluation with the trade deadline, a little over a month away. Has anything, since then, you guys still haven't played very good baseball during that point. Has that period caused you to rethink some of the fundamental things that you thought about this roster as far as what you may need getting closer than it was, I think maybe 2.5 weeks ago, maybe when we spoke to you?
I think you continue to learn, and you're right, we haven't played well. Over this last stretch, it's continued longer than I would have anticipated in terms of prolonged stretch of not playing very good baseball consistently. So you do learn from that. I think it's natural for opinions about certain segments of the team to change when you go through a 2.5, 3 week stretch like we've gone through. My overarching opinion of the team remains the same. I think we're a good team. I think we have good players. I think we're certainly much better than we've played over the last 3 weeks. And I think everyone in our clubhouse would agree with that. But I'd also be foolish not to look at the last 2.5 weeks and recognize that, we haven't played well, and there are probably areas where we need to get better, whether that's internally, players improving, either players that are here or players who are in AAA, or external reinforcements.
Tim?
You mentioned external reinforcements. This is a month where a lot of deals are made. What are the challenges in making those deals sooner in July rather than 4 weeks from now?
Yeah, generally a couple. The first is you need a dance partner, and those don't always emerge the first couple weeks of July. I think for the better of the sport, we have more playoff teams. That keeps more teams in it longer. Fewer teams inclined to trade valuable major league players early in the month before they get a clear picture of their own competitive state. So I think that's the first hurdle. The second hurdle is, because of everything I just said, the prices for players who are available can be prohibitively high. And you could walk yourself into a pretty foolish deal, and we're not going to do that. So we're certainly active in discussions, but it's early, and it's pretty early in the month.
Given those cons, you made a deal like that last year for Maton. What are the pros of making a move now versus waiting?
Yeah, and anytime you can bring in a player to your organization that you think makes you better, it's great. It's great to do, and so we're going to explore every avenue we can, and see what's out there.
Joel?
David, you described your need right now as short-term because you believe, I think, Senga and Minaya are on the horizon. But do you think a certain amount of fragility has shown up in your pitching, physically and or maybe in some of your relievers hitting a physical wall here just from use, where it's not just a short horizon thing, but that if you don't get external help, that it might be hard to end the season well?
I think we'll have a better answer to that 2-3 weeks from now, once we get Senga, Sean back, once we see how Tylor continues to progress in his rehab, to have a better understanding of what our overall pitching equation looks like. Also potentially have a couple more weeks to evaluate what's going on in AAA. But I certainly think it's a fair question when you go through a stretch like we've had, both in terms of injuries and performance. We have to take a look at our pitching staff as a whole, do our best to understand why this is happening, and certainly see if there are ways we can get better, both internally and externally.
If I could just follow this. I know you've been through a lot in your time running baseball operations, and you know how quickly things can happen. Is it shocking to you how quickly you went from quantity to not quantity with this team?
It's happened rapidly. So I was like, nothing shocks me. But yeah, it's happened fast. And we have to react and adjust, and no one's going to feel sorry for us. There are other teams out there who have dealt with extensive injuries throughout the course of the season as well. We've got to adjust. We've got to play a little bit better. And from a front office standpoint, we've got to do our best to support this team where we can.
Mark?
One more on your pitching prospects, and Sproat in particular. It was had a tough year, but is coming off maybe the best start of his year. Just what are you seeing from him, and is he starting to figure it out a little bit?
Yeah, that was probably the best start he's had in AAA with us, which was great to see. And I think we saw, as much as anything, a little bit of a mindset shift where he just got into attack mode and wasn't trying to be perfect with every single pitch, just realized this stuff is really good and said, I'm going to go out there and challenge these guys and beat them, and he did. And so I think that was some great positive reinforcement for him, and we are looking forward to him continuing to bring that mentality to starts going forward.
Tony?
You mentioned a moment ago trying to figure out why this is happening with your pitching. A year ago, you guys were really healthy in the rotation. This year, obviously not. I'm assuming the mechanics behind the scenes haven't changed all that much. So what theories maybe do you have to that end?
So I think we try to look at each individual injury as an individual event. And if we examine each one, some of them are maybe a little bit more bad luck. Lower half injuries for pitchers are pretty difficult to predict. What happened to Griff, throughout sport right now is pretty difficult to predict and to prevent. The upper extremity issues, I think we probably take more seriously and try to dig in deeply, truly understand the individual cause, and we've done that. We've had some that occurred over the off season coming into camp, and now we've had one that has occurred in season, and so we certainly do reviews on that. We try to learn from it. I think we've got a great medical staff. I think we've got an elite medical staff, and I am confident that collectively we're going to be about as good as they're in baseball in terms of training and caring for our athletes.
And just on the younger players, specifically McLean, a lot of your other prospects have gotten to AAA and seem to have hit some sort of wall when they get there. He hasn't. To what extent does that maybe earn him some sort of benefit of the doubt or maybe a quicker ride up here than, had he been struggling?
Yeah, so look, results matter. And to his credit, he has he's competed and largely had success there. There are still elements of his game, and he's very aware of it, that we want him to work on. And I think he's doing that and meeting those challenges. And so I would say we are altogether pleased with how he's developing this year at AAA.
Everybody good? Thank you very much. Oh, Gary, sorry.
I just want to get your thoughts on David Peterson, because for a long time since he came back last year, the peripherals have kind of screamed for regression. How much do you think these last couple of starts have been a little bit of that, and how much is it a greater concern what you've seen?
I'm PD. I'm not concerned. I think this is a very good major league starter. Yes, there's going to be ball in play with David Peterson. And so it's going to be a combination of we've got to make some plays behind him, and sometimes it's going to find some grass, and he probably can't control that all the time. But the way he goes about it, his ability to stay in zone with all of his pitches, his ability to compete, his ability to mix, I think he has a very successful formula for getting major league hitters out. Each individual pitch, if you're looking at a publicly available stuff metric or something like that, each individual pitch may not grade out as a plus pitch. I think when you put them all together, it's a pretty impressive package, and he knows how to use them. And so he's had a couple of rough ones, and I would expect him to bounce back over the course of the season.
Tony?
Just on Nunez, it was announced as a sprain. Do you guys have reason to believe there's a partial or full ligament tear there?
So there is not a full tear. There is ligament involvement, and so this is one of those where we're going to have to see multiple doctors' opinions, go through it. This one's a little bit gut wrenching because this is a guy who's worked incredibly hard to get back to this point, and for him to feel what he did last night, have to go through this again, it's tough.